Is there a fundamental problem with air traffic control in the United States?
The Trump White House is firing hundreds of air traffic controllers at the FAA.
This country's air traffic control system is unsustainable. It's unsustainable.
How serious are the shortages, and what kind of role do they play in the recent incidents and accidents that we have been seeing? In this video, I'm going to try to answer these questions and also look at how or if these problems are being solved right now. Stay tuned. Many of you have in the comments here below recently been asking me if something is changing in the world of aviation, if there is something causing the high number of incidents and accidents that we're seeing, especially in the United States. Well, I made a recent video to try to answer that exact question, and there I pointed out that there isn't really any identifiable common links between these accidents that would point to a specific trend. And I stand by that argument. But those of you that follow aviation closely and have been following this channel for a bit longer, you probably know that questions around this topic go way back longer than just the past few months. In 2023, for example, I made another video focusing more specifically on various close calls in several airports in the United States. And those involved runway incursions and other events that brought aircraft way too close to each other. And just a couple of weeks ago, there was actually another one of those, involving a Southwest Boeing 737 that had to reject a landing due to a crossing business jet. So, inevitably, these events do raise the question, what role does air traffic control play in all of this? Now, before I go any further, I know that many of you already know this, but I need to emphasize this for everybody in this case. There are no easy answers here. It is easy to point fingers and say that A or B was at fault, but aviation accidents almost never happen because of one single cause. In the over 100 years that commercial aviation has been active, we've been learning from accidents and incidents and have built layer upon layer of protections. This goes for both our technical systems, our training, and of course our procedures, and this has evolved not only to prevent mistakes, but also to catch them when they inevitably happen, because they will always continue to happen. That is actually what I mean when I talk about Dr. Reason's Swiss cheese model. Our systems and procedures are created so that in order for an accident to happen, many things have to occur in just the wrong order. Let me also take this time to honor Dr. James Reason, who passed away recently. His contribution to aviation safety just cannot be overstated. Thank you, Doctor. Rest in peace. Anyway, the reason I just mentioned is why accident investigations almost always mention multiple causes of each accident, usually also with even more contributing factors on top of those. And the issues related to air traffic control might be just one out of all of those factors. All of that being said, though, it's only natural for investigators to examine the role of air traffic control every time something happens in the airport environment, especially when more than one aircraft is involved, which obviously is why there is so much scrutiny on air traffic control after these runway incursions. Now, before we look for any recent changes in the job that air traffic controllers do, let's take a closer look at what the job actually involves. I know that many people think that controllers are just those people sitting in the tower talking to pilots who are about to take off on land, but that's just one out of the roles that controllers have. There are also ground controllers who are talking to aircraft taxiing around the airport, and depending on the airport size, they could also have separate ground controllers handling traffic that's closer to the terminals and parking aprons, and others that are handling aircraft out on the taxiways. And that's only the positions at the airport. Then there are also controller positions for aircraft on approach and departure, and these controllers may or may not be located at the airport themselves. And on top of that, we also have en route centers with even more controllers handling traffic that's en route, as their name suggests. These are all seriously demanding jobs. When they're not sitting high up in a tower, a lot of controllers have to work in somewhat dark rooms to help them see their screens a bit more clearly, and that's despite modern computers now being much better than the old radar scopes were. Modern computers are also much better at highlighting potential traffic conflict, but despite this, air traffic controllers obviously need to stay alert and recognize such problems before they happen, and ensuring that can be easier said than done. The controllers also have to work shifts, and just like pilots, they have strict limits on how long they can work. The shifts can't be any longer than 10 hours, for example, but there are also several requirements for breaks and frequent changes in positions during each shift in order to help them stay focused and alert. They then need a minimum of 9 hours of rest between their shifts, and obviously these shifts could be happening during both day or night, not to mention weekends and vacation periods, just like for us pilots. On top of this is also a job that really depends on people staying sharp, which is one of the reasons why the FAA still mandates that air traffic controllers must retire at the age of 56 in the United States. Again, these are seriously demanding jobs, in addition to being safety critical, and unfortunately, there just doesn't seem to be enough people around to fill these jobs today. Now, there are some disagreement between different sources here regarding how big the shortage of US ATC personnel actually is, but it seems to be in the region of 3,500 to 3,800 positions. That's out of an FAA target of 14,600 controllers, according to the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, or NATCA. Now, these shortages mean that many existing controllers are right now working 6-day weeks with 10-hour workdays, and even with that, it's still not enough to fill all of those empty slots. Now, there is also an option for one controller to handle 2 positions simultaneously, like tower and ground, depending on the workload and other additional limitations. And that was a detail that got more publicity recently because the controller handling the CRJ-700 and the helicopter during that fateful mid-air collision over the Potomac River in DC was staffing 2 different jobs at that time. But obviously, we don't know if that played any part in what actually happened. That's why we have to wait for the final report. But CNN reported that the Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport has 28 controller positions, of which 24 were staffed during the accident, which obviously got plenty of media attention. I really wish that the press would allow the accident investigators to speak before even considering pointing blame in any one direction, but that's just me. Anyway, so why are there such shortages of air traffic controllers in the United States then? Well,